YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. In today's video, I'm ranking the top wide receiver free agency signings from worst to first. Going with the top 8 here. There was 7 or 8 big wide receiver free agents heading into free agency. I think they've all signed by this point. There's still some very good ones. I think Golden Tate's at the top of that list, T.Y. Hilton, guys like that. We'll have you covered for that, but since we're kind of in a period with no news right now, and Golladay recently signed earlier today, so he's kind of the last piece of the puzzle for this video, I'm going to rank them. A lot goes into this. Value of the contract, fit, the player's talent, the player's upside. Now, not upside in terms of, in terms of talent, how young they are, but also the contract. It helps if the contract's lengthy as well because, how are you going to reach that upside if it's only a one-year deal? So all of that factored into these rankings. And I'm going to rank them worst to first. All kinds of signing grades on the channel, more to come. Still got to grade some of the signings today, waiting for a few more to happen. And then we'll, of course, rank the best moves of the offseason, the sleeper moves, the worst moves, and the best teams, worst teams, winners and losers in general. We got all that to get to still. Still consider this the first wave of free agency, some big players out there. Follow our Twitter for breaking news. Subscribe to the channel for that full NFL coverage. We got NFL draft coverage right around the corner as well. Here's our Twitter at GoDustNFL. Always keeping you updated on news, everything, anything you can think of here, anything NFL. But starting with number 8, and this is a worst to first list, but this doesn't necessarily mean I think Nelson Agholor is bad. He's the worst signing in free agency. Not at all. There's always some people out there that kind of take those things that way, these things that way. Not the case. Agholor is definitely getting better. You can see that, But the question is, was it because of that Raiders system? Will he be able to do that with Cam Newton, the Patriots, whoever their quarterback is? 2-year, $22 million. Ended up being a little cheaper than first reported. Sounded like $13 million around there when first reported. So a little cheaper. The Patriots were missing this type of receiver. So that helps them, for sure. Better downfield, and they got to get the downfield game going. And, some people say the downfield game couldn't really get going because the receivers. Some people think because Cam just didn't have the, ever since the injury, it seemed like the arm strength isn't there. I think it's a good mixture of both, but, they do need to get things going downfield, and they get the ball downfield to help Agholor out. So he comes in at number 8. The Patriots, the Patriots probably wish they waited a little longer for Agholor, but maybe there was, he was deciding between a lot of teams. A lot of teams were offering around the same amount, but the market ended up going down. I don't think it's too far off his value, but then when you factor in, what most other guys' value is going down, does his value go down? I don't know if it necessarily works like that, but you also can think of it as maybe we could have got him cheaper, kind of along those lines there. So coming at number 8, number 7 is going to be A.J. Green, kind of a big name guy. Was kind of in the back end of those big name receivers for this year's free agency class. He comes in at 7, 1 year, $6 million. It's pretty good value. Not a lot of upside with this deal because it's A.J. Green. It's only a 1-year deal, but it's pretty good value there with $6 million. Even though it's not that surprising, I thought it'd be. I didn't think he would have that great of a market. The only downside of this, I really wanted the Cardinals to get a receiver that was creative, getting open in the middle of the field, very quickly, because that seemed to be the problem for the Cardinals last year. So it's not that style of receiver, more of an outside guy. That he can do more than that. But at the end of the day, they got better with this. I got him at number 7, just some other ones I think more impactful now and down the line. 6 going to be Corey Davis. Broke out last year for the Tennessee Titans. Really his only good year. Very solid year, though. Obviously got a lot better, so he can continue to do that. I'm kind of hoping it's a guy like Zach Wilson because that could make the signing even better. We'll see who it ends up being. 3-year, $37.5. End up being one of the more higher paid receivers. Was a guy I was worried would get overpaid a little bit. I think slightly more than I would prefer it, and then the market went down. But it's still around his value. The market goes down for some guys. Does that mean, you need to decrease the guys who already signed, everyone's value? I don't know. I don't think that's really how it works. I think talent should speak for itself. That's his value. But, a little more than I would have, really liked, the ideal situation. But, they got a good young receiver that's, playing better and better. So hopefully they get the right quarterback for him. He comes in at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Marvin Jones here. Like Marvin Jones a lot. Definitely a sleeper receiver. Very productive. Every time he's on the field, very good downfield. Very cheap contract, 2-year, $12.5. So kind of all of the above here. It's not the wow talent, of some of the other guys. Pretty good though. Pretty damn good. definitely underrated. But then he also gets the value too. I think it's a good fit with just, we expect, Trevor Lawrence type offense. It's definitely a receiver they could use. Him opposite of DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault on the inside. Definitely boost Laviska Shenault's game because I think guys like DJ Chark and Marvin Jones really stretches the field. Teams, especially, if we factor in Trevor Lawrence expected, really going to stretch the field out. Defenders are going to be, especially in the secondary, they're going to be worried about the deep ball. Get a guy like Shenault going underneath because he's a creative type receiver. Helps the running game as well. So that's just big for the team in general. And then mainly very good value, like I said. So that's number 5. Number 4 is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. Value's off the charts here. The question here is it's a 1-year deal. He took the 1-year deal to, I think a lot of people are, I think people look at the 1-year deals and they compare those to the longer deals and they look at the per year price. I don't think you can really do that because the 1-year guys rather have the 1-year deal cheaper than, more expensive per year because they want the even more expensive per year next year. So they took the 1-year deal for cheaper. So I don't know if you really can compare the per year value on these contracts from 1 year versus multi-year. I think a lot of people are doing that, and I don't think it's right. Because if Juju would have got multi-years, he would have got more than $8 million per year, but he didn't want that because he wants to bank on himself for next year because the cap's going to go up. It makes sense, it makes sense. So I think people are kind of punishing the teams, if you're making a grading system for giving a guy $1 million or $2 million more than Juju Smith-Schuster, for an example, while it's multi-year. So hopefully everyone understands what I'm saying. I think that's a problem around there for people like kind of grading out there, things like that, comparing the contracts. But yeah, there is somewhat of a negative here. It's really not negative, as a whole, it's not, major negative here. But this was kind of the Steelers' big move, and they had receivers already, very good player here. He's getting better, but was this going to make or break their team this year? I don't know. I think kind of offensive line play, quarterback play, being able to run the ball to make things easier for your quarterback and your receivers. Some guys have lost on defense. So, I thought those things were more important, especially because you had receivers. So that was kind of the downside. Maybe you could have spent it a little more. You could debate that. It's definitely good to have him back with the Steelers for sure. At the end of that's why it's not top 3. 4 is a good ranking. It's a great signing. When I graded it, I graded an A. Big fan of Juju's game. I think it'll be much better this year than last year, hopefully. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just ridiculous value. It's just ridiculous value. So it comes in ahead of some of these other longer contracts. Remember, the longer contracts, upside kind of factors in with those because you can't really reach your upside, even though Juju has that with the 1-year deal. So I think upside kind of falls on the guys with the longer contracts. And, when ranking the best receiver signings, usually those have an advantage, but this is just such a steal in terms of value, I thought. And he turned down other contracts as well that were more for pretty good teams. Number 3 is going to be Curtis Samuel. Lengthy contract here, somewhat 3 years, $34.5 million. So he gets the price range where I kind of thought he would kind of going into the year. Then, people are like, well, maybe he got overpaid, but no, he didn't. You can't compare the 1 year to 3 year. It's right around the range where I thought he would get, maybe slightly more, maybe slightly. But it's really not a problem. It is a risky signing because one good year, will he fit anything other than that kind of that Joe Brady system? But when it comes down to why it's a top 3 signing, in my opinion, I love the fit here with Washington, the Scott Turner offense. Really good with those gadget type guys, but they also needed a receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin. I think it's a really good pairing. They play with each other at Ohio State as well. So that's fantastic. I think it's just such a great fit. It's exactly what Washington needed to come in here and do. So I like it a lot. For those reasons, it falls at number 3. Upside is ridiculous because last year it's risky because it was only a good year, but he really took that step. He really took that step next year. Just an all-around receiver. We even seen him kind of go up and attack the ball, highest point. Not something you expect from Curtis Samuel. Over the middle of the field, the outside when needed, even though they had 2 other receivers that were, a little better on the outside. But, so the upside here, with him, his upside, and the 3-year deal combined, fantastic. Exactly what Washington needed to do. So it's at number 3. Number 2 is going to be Will Fuller. Like I said, it's a little, you definitely get the more of an impact and upside factor if it's a lengthy deal. So It's something that I have a 1-year deal here at number 2, but first off, like Juju, it's an absolute steal in terms of value, but this is exactly what the Dolphins needed for Tua Tagovailoa. They needed speed, separation, and got somebody to get the downfield game going, because Tua just really couldn't get the downfield game going. Either he couldn't really get much going at the end there. It's because all those things I listed. Downfield plus separation, and you add the speed. Will Fuller is one of the most electrifying players in football, one of the fastest players in football. Once you're on the field in pads, and I thought and you kind of factor in upside, which is tough because it's only a 1-year deal, but I thought he was getting better right before he got suspended. He was getting better with his footwork. Before it was just kind of just straight speed. I'm just going to beat you because I'm really fast. Now he's getting really good with the footwork, the recognition of defenses, coverages, and the route running is fantastic. So I honestly wish it was more than 1 year. I really do. It would have been number 1 probably. But yeah, I really like Will Fuller. I like where he's headed. It's exactly what the Dolphins needed. So that is why it is number 2. And number 1 best free agency signing is one that happened today. I'm going Kenny Golladay, seen him with Daniel Jones. No more excuses for Daniel Jones here. And when I do the grades, it's strictly off kind of value. Fit factors in as well. But again, like I said in the beginning of this video, everything factors in here. The player's talent, the player's upside, himself, and then does the contract support that? Does it support it? Fit, everything. And then when you combine all of that, all of those things, I got Kenny Golladay at number 1. $18 million per year is a lot. The market went down, and people were saying that's an overpay. $18 million per year, it's an overpay. Look at what the other guys got. It's not true. It's not true. I value Golladay at and I'm not really a huge fan of paying receivers that much money, especially when the draft class is like that. But I really like Kenny Golladay, and I figured he would get around that range. Now, it doesn't drop because, first of all, other guys are getting a certain price. Maybe you could say maybe we can get him a little cheaper because these guys, but his value doesn't really necessarily drop because of that. And again, I bring up the factor of 4-year deal versus a 1-year deal. Guys are signing cheaper on a 1-year deal than they could get on a 4-year deal, because they want to come back to free agency next year when the salary cap goes way up, get their 4-year deal, 3-year, whatever it is, and get that 18 to 20 range. So they want to get to Galladay's level because this is where his level's at already. A little risky because he had some injuries last year. They brought him in for medical check. They checked him out. I think the injury thing for him is a little overrated. I'm not super worried about it. He wasn't happy with the Lions situation. I don't like that either, that he was just play football, that's more of it, I think. But before that, the last 2 years, he played all games but one the previous 2 years. I'm not really too worried. They checked him out. There was a serious visit, 2 days, so serious stuff there. I like it. It is expensive. It's expensive. The downside here is, in terms of value, he isn't the number 1. It's not number 1 because $18 million, and I'm fine with it because it's right around, it's his value, but it's not like a steal or anything, you know what I'm saying? But when I'm combining everything, he's number 1. But the negative side of it, the Giants are kind of, he's part of it for 4 years, but in a way, they backload that contract. They backload Leonard Williams. They're really out of cap right now for the most part. Maybe a little bit left to get a guy like Adoree Jackson. So that kind of says they think they're going to win right now, which I like the confidence. The defense can win right now. The receiver unit, the running back, if he's healthy. The offensive line, the quarterback is the question. So that could be holding them back. And when I say win right now, I mean Super Bowl. Again, I like the confidence, but are the Giants going to just overnight win a Super Bowl? Probably not. I love the roster in general. I'm not fully trusting Daniel Jones, the offensive line, quite yet, but other than that, I like the roster. But yeah, the downside is, the way things are backloaded, they got to get their roster completely together now, based on how everything's backloaded, because they're not going to be able to make big moves then. They're not going to make, if Daniel Jones starts to play ridiculous all of a sudden, they may have a hard time extending him then. I'm sure they'll get it done. I'm not doubting them for sure, but my point is the position they put themselves into. So they're going to have to, but the good, the positive is, Galladay's part of that. He's locked up for that 4 years. So you don't have to worry about re-signing him for another 4 years. So he's part of that. Leonard Williams is part of that. So that's fantastic. Overall impact, is what takes over here. And upside as well. Golladay, I felt like he was getting better. He's not the youngest guy of this group. I still view him as young, but it felt like he was taking his game to the next level. I can't really find a flaw to his game besides there's some minor injury concern. There's really no flaw. He's kind of a do-it-all guy. I think where he the thing that wow stands out is the contested catch ability, and usually 99% of the time in today's era, those guys that have that crazy contested catch ability, that's really all they do. They struggle a little bit with the separation. Not all of them, but most of them. They don't really fit today's era. These are guys that fit old school era, but not Golladay. Golladay has so much more to his game. It's such a rare player. So I'm a big fan. I actually had him as my number one receiver in this free agency class, and the Giants landed when they weren't really expected to at that $18 million. They pulled it off here. So I put Golladay at number one. Again, some other free agents probably going to start falling off the board here. I like Golden Tate. I like T.Y. Hilton would probably be my second. Larry Fitzgerald, Antonio Brown, Sammy Watkins, Damari Bird's a sleeper guy. Josh Reynolds. How about Josh Reynolds? I'm going to like that. Depending on the price, I'm assuming I'm going to like it, whoever picks him up. I thought he really elevated his game this year. So we'll see what happens with those guys. We'll have you covered. Again, we're going to rank my favorite free agency signings in general at one point. We're going to rank, the worst moves of the offseason as well. Rank the sleeper signings, things like the best value signings, and then maybe which teams won, which teams lost. So a lot of that to get to. And then right after that, the big time NFL draft content starts. We got crazy amounts of content leading up to draft season here, even after, with all kinds of grades for that. So I cannot wait. Hopefully you can join, subscribe, smash that like button, turn notifications on. Make sure you follow that Twitter. Very, very important. But that is going to do it for this one. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.